Hi, I'm Silvia Bianco, also known as Chef Silvia, and today I'm going to be doing marinara sauce, but I'm going to do it 3 ways because one of the most confusing things that people find, or the questions that they have about marinara sauce, is what kind of tomatoes to use. So I'm going to make it really simple. You want to find a canned tomato that has nothing in it except for fine ripened tomatoes, some salt, and maybe some added basil. No added puree, nothing. Because with something as simple as a tomato sauce, what's really important is the ingredients that you use and the technique. So I'm going to go over all of those today. When it comes to ingredients, first of all, you want to look with it for the best tomatoes. So when you're looking on your can, you want to make sure that it doesn't have citrus acid added to it. Why? Because citrus acid is a preservative, and they use that to mask an inferior tomato. So obviously that's not what you want to use. Then you want to be able to choose only 3 from, in my opinion, are that go into making a great sauce. And it's crushed, it's whole peeled, and it's diced. And of those, which ones you use is really a matter of personal taste. Something like a crushed tomato will make a smoother sauce, diced will make a chunkier sauce, and a whole peeled will make a sauce that is lighter and seemingly, and with little fillets of tomatoes in it. Then the technique is pretty much the same for all 3. What you want to do is you want to start with a round bottom pan, and the reason for that is because if it has square sides, the tomatoes will get stuck in the corners. With a round bottom pan, the reason why they call it a saucepan is there's no way for the ingredients that you're using to get stuck. Then you want to be able to just cover the bottom of your pan with your olive oil. In this case, I'm using extra virgin olive oil. And you don't have to worry too much when you're looking at a recipe of whether to use 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil, because it's going to depend on the size of your pan. All you want to do is cover the bottom of your pan. So that's what I'm going to do now. I like to use a combination of garlic and onions. So my onions are going to go in first because they take a little longer to saute than the garlic. So I'm just going to put maybe, depending on the size of the onion, maybe a quarter, if not less, of the onion. And it's going to saute for a few moments, maybe a minute or 2, until they're soft and translucent. Alright, while the onions are sauteing, I'm just going to add just a pinch of black pepper, a pinch of salt, a pinch of red pepper flakes, and those will continue to cook. And I'm going to undersalt and really underspice everything, because you can add a little bit more when you're ready to use it. And it's always better to undersalt rather than oversalt, because you can always add more salt, you can't take it away. I think that makes sense. Then the other important thing that you want to consider is that you want to add your garlic right before you add your tomatoes, because when you add minced garlic to hot oil, it's going to burn rather quickly. It's only going to take about 10 to 15 seconds to turn the garlic into a golden brown, and from there it'll take just seconds for it to burn. So you want to have your tomatoes ready so you can immediately toss in your tomatoes, which will bring down the heat in the pan and stop the garlic from burning. So I'm going to do just that right now. I'm going to give it a stir. And then you're going to rinse your can with just a little bit of water and add it to the sauce, because in the cooking process some of the water content is going to evaporate and it will become actually very thick. And when that happens, you can just add a little bit more water. And it's going to take about 25 to 30 minutes for it to cook into a very aromatic, flavorful sauce. So I'm going to rinse that through. Give it a stir. And then the other thing many of you may not know is I've seen a lot of recipes that call for you to take your fresh herbs, usually basil, and then dice them and add them to your sauce. But what happens when you do that is that your herbs are going to get all brown in the cooking process, and nobody wants this brown, slimy herbs running through their sauce. Yet you still want to infuse your sauce with basil. So what I do is take a whole sprig, immerse it in the sauce, let it cook through, and then when the sauce is done, I can easily pull it out. Then I'm going to lower my heat to a simmer. Let it cook for about 25 minutes to 30 minutes, something like that. And then I'm done. Okay, next sauce. I'm not going to make the dice because it's the same process, but what I am going to do is I'm going to talk about whole peeled. Whole peeled, food purists really like to start with a whole peeled tomato, and you want to look for something that's really red in color, soft in texture. And the question is, do you take it apart? Do you crush it with your hands, or do you use a food mill such as this? Now, not everyone has a food mill, and one of the reasons to use it is that it will take the seeds from the tomatoes. Now, personally, I like the seeds. I think it adds texture and flavor, so I will take the tomato and hold the top of it, which is the core here, and then just kind of fillet it with my hands. And what you're going to get is just little fillets and tomatoes that are going to burn away, and it'll make a lighter sauce. And like any good Italian, I would only make tomato sauce with a wooden spoon. I'm going to stir that. And when you compare this to the crushed tomatoes that we made earlier, you're going to find that this is a juicier, lighter sauce. And that is a question of taste, what you like. Here we have the result of cooking marinara sauce with 3 types of tomatoes. Here we have the crushed, here we have the whole peeled, and here we have the diced. And I'm going to talk about a few interesting things about each one. Now, each came from a can of tomatoes that was 1 pound, 12 ounces. Yet look at the different yields. The crushed tomatoes obviously are going to yield the most. Second is the diced. And lastly is the whole peeled. And it actually makes sense because with the whole peeled, you have whole tomatoes and then just the juice, which is going to cook down and you're not going to get as much. Now the other difference is this is the lightest of the 3. This is the most concentrated, which you can also, if you didn't want it this thick, have added more cooking water at some point in the cooking process. And the diced tomatoes, as we expected, has a chunkier flavor, texture to it. The whole peeled has more finer fillets, and this is smooth. Now, remember what I said about the basil? The basil, this is what it looks like after it's been cooked. I don't think any one of us would want that in our mouths, which is why at this point you can see how easily I can pull it out. And that's the difference.